that the style of play will change and evolve. That's something that I think we've wanted for FF14 overall.
Right, but what if we love this current playstyle so much that the thing they change it into ends up sucking? Then the stay good thing is no longer. It doesn't stay good because they didn't hear the plights of the players.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It sounds like to me, as a layman, that they would. It sounds like from that they're planning on adding more tiers of things to fight.
It does.
It sounds ZNM-esque.
That's exactly what I thought.
Yeah,
because they had clearly they had planned out the tier progression for ZNMs from the word go. That was already done.
Right.
But the way that they had put it out in the TOAU patch updates, we got the first tier, then we got the second tier, then we got the third tier, and it's like the progression made fucking sense.
Do you remember when only the first tier of ZNMs was out and it was worthless because
we thought that's all it was?
Yeah, because we bitched about the rewards. There was like maybe one reward in the whole thing that was even remotely enticing.
Yeah.
And then they came out with the second tier and the second tier rewards, and we went, oh, wait a minute. Oh. So this is supposed to be trashed here. And they went, yeah.
Now it makes sense. Here's what I can say about this event. If you should be excited about it, whether it's good or it's bad. They have spent more time on Eureka than I can ever recall them spending on an event, right? Because this has been longer than Diadem 2 now.
Yeah.
So if they can't get this right with all that time, at least you know it's hopeless. At least you can be 100% certain.
Well, my question, I don't know. My question to you, Escalia, if they get this right, do you come back?
That is a tough question.
Yeah. So that's an even harder question.
It is a very hard question. I mean, what does right mean? If it's an acceptable event in the game, no. If it would have to be something where I could fundamentally switch my playstyle to just focus on this, because the rest of the game doesn't interest me.
Right.
The rest of the game has gotten so bad for so long that I don't care anymore.
Now let's say that you had if the game's requirement was like, okay, listen, there's probably going to be a minimum eye level requirement to go in here. Yeah. And it says, logically, that if you want to participate, then you're going to at least have to do the minimum work and get, your tome gear. You're going to have to grind out your tome gear, right? Yeah. You don't have to raid. You don't have to do anything special. But if you are logging in and you're doing your dailies and that's it, that's pretty much enough in terms of an expectation to participate in the event.
Yeah.
Is that enough to keep you engaged, or is that asking too much?
No. So here's what I would look at that as. I would, first of all, if the event is great, right? It's fun, it's good, and that's what I can focus on is like my enjoyment time for this game.
Yeah.
Sure. And they say you have to do your tome gear to be able to participate. I look at that as the exact same thing as, well, if you want to go do all these events in 11, you have to spend the time to farm gil and buy sneak pots and vis oil, or, pots, oils, and
seems
food.
Like a fair trade.
It's the trade. Like, you put in the work to go do the event. Fine. That's fine.
The thing to keep in mind is that right now, and I think the reason that Escalia got burnt out on, even why I've gotten burnt out, and I don't care about doing my tome grind to get my tome gear, is because the reason for doing that is to have it.
There isn't one.
It doesn't equate anything. If I have to do the tome gear to get into and participate in a good Eureka, then I have incentive. Then I have a drive to actually do my tome gear.
If they put an event in this game that is so fun that I consider participation my reward, then they've figured it out finally, because that's something they haven't gotten right now in, I don't know, when was 2.0?
Ever
is the word I'm looking for. Yeah. They've never gotten that right. They've always felt like the carrot at the end of the stick is the piece of gear that you get at the end. And that can be true sometimes, but if the events to do it suck and the gear ends up not mattering, well, that doesn't help you very much. I genuinely enjoyed C progression in 11. I hated Sky, admittedly, but I loved C. I loved Limbus. Those were legitimately fun things to go do.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's talk about the way that gear progression could end up working here.
Sure.
Because what I would think would be a fair trade-off is that at the end of it, if you do all of the stuff and you decide to take the gear from this system and bring it out into the overworld,
you quote unquote clear Eureka,
right? Like you clear Eureka, you bring your items out. I think that a fair trade-off would be 5 eye levels above tome gear and 5 eye levels below raid gear. Right. Yeah. And then every time we get an update, it just brings it to that same standard.
If
that seems worth it.
If they set it up, like, listen, I will completely understand if they want to stick to the idea of your raid gear will always be your top tier gear. I'm fine with that. And they say this will be better than tome gear and worse than raid gear, and we will keep it at that point. Yeah, that is a worthwhile reward. And again, that it's all is preceded by the event being fun.
Right.
If the event is fun, like Palace of the Dead, the event itself was fun. The reward wasn't always there for it. Sometimes it was,
right,
but not always.
Right.
If the reward had always been there, the event being fun will carry it. And even to this day, even with the reward not being always there, you can always find people to do Palace of the Dead. Yeah. Or at least you could when I was playing.
Yeah, Crimson Tinted says I-365. That does it. That does it for me.
Sure. I mean, and then, like you say, if the requirements to get in are that you've at least done your tome work for that round,
yeah,
I think it's a fair ask.
Kahlo, what about you?
I don't know. Because as soon as you said brought the item level thing back up, it killed it for me again. Because the thing about the item level is once the next patch comes out, well, then it's all irrelevant anyhow. Why go into Eureka and work for that gear that's admittedly better than my tome gear when the next tome gear is going to be better than what comes out of Eureka?
Well, I guess the question really comes down to then how often will we see updates to Eureka?
Yes. Are they going to update?
It would have to be as often as new gear, right?
Yeah.
When the eye level goes up, so that's every other patch. So does Eureka.
That's every other patch. No, wait.
I would like to see, and what I think an answer to that would be, is if this upgradable stuff was exactly that. In order to get the next one, so when the next tome gear comes out, and sure, that tome gear is better than the Eureka stuff I have now, but that if I wanted to get the next level of Eureka stuff, I have to have already upgraded the current Eureka stuff and either hand that in or keep upgrading it further. Make it feel like I'm not throwing away what I've invested my time in.
Well, that's almost like, Palace of the Dead with their Pajali and the 2 weapons they had there. You had to have them already and then upgrade it from there.
Right.
And you can make getting the prior stage easier as time goes on.
Right.
And if you can only work on either one type of armor, one type of weapon at a time, it also gives you a reason to be going back.
Right. Well, and I think that, you do need to provide reasons to go back and have people requeue. And even if they've gotten, their reward out of it, to go back after the next update. But here's one of the things that you've got to remember is that, one of our big complaints with Stormblood is that we've now got this patch progression cycle where we get two dungeons and an eye level push. And then the next patch, we get 1 dungeon and we don't get an eye level push.
Right.
Whereas with Heavensward, we were getting an eye level push like almost every, or was it every other?
It was.
I think it was every other.
And then the in between was the one where they would push your tome gear up the next 10 eye levels.
Right. And I think that the way that we've got a spread of eye level choices right now, it feels a little bit more appropriate than it did in Heavensward. Heavensward seemed like things were getting outmodded so quickly, and and maybe this is just because I'm a little less plugged into Stormblood than I was in Heavensward, that it seems like I'm tossing shit out a little less frequently than I was in Heavensward.
You know what? I think that actually I'll give you that, because I felt like sometimes in Heavensward that if I fell a week or two behind, that before I even completed my tome set, I'm going to be throwing it out. And that's now that it's kind of, a double-edged sword, because if the time between patches is too long, we complain that there's nothing to do, and if they're too short, we're not getting enough time to do what there is. I feel like a hypocrite now.
Well, you should, because you're a fucking idiot, but whatever.
But it is a fine line to walk. But it's the fundamental problem of this system that they've chosen, and it's one that every vertical progression game has to deal with.
Right.
Your only reward is gear, and because you can't swap it, it's one set of gear. It's one best in slot piece.
Right.
So your only option there is to either make it look really cool for glamour purposes. Like if they had done even that way, so you're going to get your tome gear and your raid gear push in the first patch, and in the off patch, you get the upgrade for that tome gear and the ability to customize it is in that patch. Now you can bridge that gap a little bit easier in between your next eye level push.
Isn't that sort of what they're doing? Isn't that kind of the
That's kind of what Eureka would serve to do, right?
Well, but I mean, right now, like when you upgrade tome gear, it becomes dyeable, and yeah. So that's pretty close to what it is at the moment. And now, if see, the thing is that if they put in, gear that comes out of Eureka at 360. Right. I'm not that, like it's a question of whether, does this pair of gloves have more critical hit or direct hit on it than this other set? If you put it at 365,
it's just definitively better.
It is definitively better.
Yeah, and it has to be an actual eye level difference.
Yes.
I need to be able to walk around and say, like, because I've completed Eureka, which I assume won't be an easy thing to do.
Right.
Hopefully.
Right.
This is my nice gear.
Right.
Check it out. I've got sweet dyed AF3 gear that is pimp.
So we get Eureka. Let's say we get the 365 gear, right? Next patch we get the next Rabinasty, right? That's another small eye level bump, and we get the ability to upgrade the tome gear that just came out in this most recent patch.
Right.
That actually feels like a bit more of a native progression and a natural progression, and that 365 stuff is not automatically outmodded as quickly.
Right,
like,
it's not dumpstered.
Yeah, like it takes a little bit more effort to upgrade the tome gear, and like to Robbie's point, or to Kahlo's point, if you do get a couple of weeks behind in your tome grinding, then, that 365 piece does become a lot more attractive.
Yeah, and I mean, you also, again, have another avenue into raiding. If you don't want to do, your tome grind or Rab Nasty, whatever it happens to be,
or you can outfit yourself faster because you've got, 365 gear coming out of tomes, you've got the ability to upgrade it, and you've got that 365 gear that's coming out of Eureka as well.
Right, yeah.
That can help you fill in some of those holes quicker.
And how about we don't get randomized stats on it this time?
That would be nice.
That was
the worst part about, I think.
Yeah, that was horrible.
I would assume with the whole, or I'm hoping, sorry, I shouldn't assume, but I'm hoping with the whole upgrading thing that there is a certain aspect of we also get to decide what type of stats is going.
I don't know. That's asking for a lot.
I mean, there was always that point, at least in the relic weapon line,
right, where you could decide your stats.
Yeah.
I think that'd be actually a very cool idea for Eureka. Or also if something that you did with the elemental wheel played into how your gear scaled up.
Interesting. See, I actually like the idea of being able to customize your gear, but through things that you have to earn through the system, the Eureka system, right? Like if there's, we're using Magicite, and I mean, to your point, you can you could either use that on your elemental wheel to help in the fights, or you could apply that to
your armor weapon.
Yeah, I kind of like that idea.
I think that would be a cool way to go about it. You'd get a lot of people who are just like throwing it on their weapon and ignoring, like making themselves like actually stronger in the fight. But if you could find a well,
then you're going to lose. Then your party's going to lose.
What if
a lot?
If each of the elements is tied to a different stat.
There you go.
Now when you fight someone, I'm pumped up on thunder, but that translates into dexterity. I don't need dexterity. I need fire for strength.
Right. Interesting.
Oh no, I got to fight a water boss, but I don't need lightning. I don't need dexterity. I got to fight with fire, so now I'm weakened.
We want to hear from you. What are some of your ideas for what could be coming with Eureka? What would you like to see? Give us a call. Limit Break Radio on Skype, 810-515-8715, or limitbreakradio.com/Discord to give us a call over Discord. I think that there's I am more optimistic